Thank you for joining me on the Moms Who Know podcast, the podcast for moms who know that when they take care of themselves, they can take better care of everyone else. Today's podcast is all about family culture and really intentionally deciding what you want your family to be. My guest is Jodi Chaffee, and I loved learning from her. She podcasts about this topic and really works to develop her family culture and has so much to teach us. So you guys are going to enjoy this great episode. Hello and welcome to the Moms Who Know podcast. I'm your host, Chanel Nielsen, and my guest today is Jodi Chaffee. Jodi, thank you for being with us today.
It's my pleasure. I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you. It'll be a fun conversation. I feel like we have lots to learn from you. So let me just dive right in and introduce you. Jodi is the host and creator of Our Modern Heritage. It's a podcast about home and family culture. And on that podcast, she talks about values, vision, traditions, and roles that lead families to success. Jodi is a mom of 4 who she homeschools, which I always think homeschool moms are amazing. So I think it's awesome that you do that. And Jodi has done many things, and including entrepreneurship and being published in a variety of platforms. So again, we are happy to have you here today. So let's go ahead. Yeah, let's jump right in and tell us a little bit more about your family and what got you started with podcasting.
I got really interested in family culture because I wanted to know how families could succeed. You know, I think that you see a lot of families who look like they're making it, and then next thing you know, they are falling apart or they're getting a divorce or something. And I'm like, wait, what was going on? Why was that just a facade that they were presenting? And is there some way that we can really shape our families so that we have a strong foundation so that that doesn't happen? And because when I first started learning about family culture is that I served my mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Hawaii. And I served at the visitor center. And so I got to meet people from all over the world. And I also got to serve on campus at the Brigham Young University, Hawaii. And I met a couple there who they were both from different cultures. And we'd had a dinner appointment there, and they were really struggling, and they were actually butting heads about their respective cultures. And my companion and I were just freaking out, like, oh my goodness, this family is really struggling. And we didn't know what to do. And we tried our best to talk about eternal families and things. But I left thinking, oh my goodness, what happens if I meet somebody from a different culture? How do we make it work? And then I thought, wait, what if I meet somebody who's not? And we still need to figure out how to make it work. And I just it freaked me out a little bit. I was scared, like, how do we make our different cultures work? And there was a senior missionary serving at the visitor center, and he was from Tonga, and his wife is American. And so, they're senior missionaries, so they've been married for who knows how long, and they had a successful family. All of their kids, I think all their kids were strong families and stuff. I met at least one of their daughters. Anyways, I approached him because I was like, how do you do this? How do you make your two separate cultures work? And I'll never forget what he said, because he said, you have to come together and forget about your own culture. Just forget it. And he, Tongan culture, American culture, very strong backgrounds, very strong cultures. He said, you forget your own culture and you come together and you agree on to adopt the church culture. And so to me, that meant, doing those things that will strengthen your families. And what I have come to translate that to mean through my podcast and this message is that we have to come together to just agree. I think that, we come together, husband and wife, and we both have totally different backgrounds. We have different traditions that we grew up with. And sometimes we can butt heads over, well, my family did this growing up and we should do this, but then the other person might disagree. And so with my own family, I mean, my husband and I, we grew up with very similar backgrounds, actually. And, but yet we've still had to come together to agree what our family believes, what our family does, what our family represents, and what we stand for, and what our vision is for the long term of what we want to accomplish. And so that's why I started the podcast, because I just started to question, seeing families who are successful, who fall apart, or seeing other kids who seem to be successful. And I think, how did their families make such a successful child who go into the Olympics or master a sport or an instrument or things like that? And I wondered, how do these families do it? How are they thriving? How are they so successful? Because I think that if you want your children to grow up being successful or being accomplished in anything, then you have to have a vision. You have to have an idea or a goal of how to accomplish that. Wouldn't you say?
Yes, totally. Okay, I think that's so interesting. And I love that you brought up you and your husband, because as I was thinking about this, I was thinking the same thing. My husband and I come from very similar backgrounds and very similar families. And yet, even with that, there's still, in any couple, there are things that you have to come together on, and you have to work through, and you have to work out. And so really, whether you're coming from two different, cultures, like different countries, you're still coming from two different worlds, just being a man and a woman, right? I mean, you still are, you have to figure this out no matter who you are. And some people, with the different culture thing, you might have a little bit, an added degree of difficulty, but there's stuff for all of us here and stuff for all of us to work out. So I'm really curious, as you have studied family culture, you just have this focus on it. And I feel like when you focus on something, it allows you to see it more clearly. And as you've done the podcast, what are some of the answers that you've gotten? Like, what does make a family a success? What makes a family culture work?
That's a great question, because I think that, a lot of times, I got it a lot of times from, we hear a lot about corporate culture and business culture, and people understand what that means. They're like, oh yeah, I go to work and the culture there is miserable because everybody, and you know what that means. Or I go to work and the culture there is so welcoming, it's so inviting, I love going to work. But when people say family culture, they go, what? Oh yeah, we have, maybe, I don't know. But what they don't realize is every family has a culture, whether it's by default, meaning we just go with the flow, or it's by design. And so what I've learned is that the successful families are the ones who are aware that they're aware that family culture exists and that they can intentionally shape it. And so they've learned how to figure out, like you said, there's roles that we fill as a family that you have to come together and agree on. Over the last couple of decades or so, the roles in our families have changed. And so we have to be able to come together and agree on who is fulfilling what role in our homes and our families, and we have to figure out what our values are, what our family stands for, what we want, the values that we want to instill in our children. And really, that really is our legacy. And the legacy that we leave with our families is what, we want to be remembered for, and what we want to perpetuate and extend out into the world. And so it comes back to having those values, understanding your roles, but you define those by having a vision, why you're doing what you do. And I mean, when you think about back when you got married and you go, and you kind of envision like, oh, we're going to spend the rest of our lives together, and we're going to start a family, and we're going to X, Y, and Z, whatever it is. You started out thinking about those kinds of things, but then life catches up to you and you get bogged down by the day to day, or you get distracted by just survival mode and things like that. And we lose sight of that vision. But when we're successful, we have a successful family culture when we have those things written down. We have our vision written down. We have some kind of mission or goals that we have written down for our families that helps us to keep in our sights why we're doing this, so that all of the things that get so distracting and the struggles that we go through, there's a meaning. Have you ever read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl?
I haven't. I need to add that to my list, though.
So I just love that book. And one of the things that he says is that, and when I'm paraphrasing now because I don't have it in front of me, but when you know your why, then you can endure any how. And so overcoming those obstacles and the trials that we inevitably go through as families, if you have a clear vision of why you're going through those things, then it makes it easier to be able to resolve those problems and things and be able to overcome those obstacles.
Yes. Okay. So do you recommend then that families sit down together and come up with an actual written family mission statement?
I think that it's helpful. You asked me that question before leading up to prepare for this. And I thought to myself, we haven't actually done this yet, but we have. Well, so we wrote out what we wrote out at the beginning of the year. Okay. So we wrote out a list of words that represented what our family wants to accomplish, or what is sustaining us and carrying us through this year. And the words we wrote down were definiteness of purpose, believe, grit and determination, impact and service, and be proactive, and grace. And then I read Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And I found out that is not a mission statement, but it is a vision statement. and because a vision statement represents your why. And I mean, these are things that are, they are a little bit about how to get to where we want to go. But a vision statement is why, and then a mission statement is how. But a mission statement is more specific, where you sit down and you write down what your values are as a family, and you write down, the things that are the most important to you, what your family represents, or the things that are your top values. Like if you're a family that your top value is health and fitness, then that's going to be on the top of your values. If a lot of families, their top of their values is honesty, integrity, kindness, those kinds of things. You sit down and you write down those things that are valuable to you. It could be forgiveness, it could be happiness, it could be emotional safety, or things like that. Then you can pull from that, how do you accomplish emotional safety? How do you accomplish families and children who are honest and have integrity? Well, that's where the mission statement comes in. So the list of values is like your why. We want our children to be honest. We want our children to have integrity. And then your mission statement is how. So we could say, we are honest by always telling the truth, or by creating a space of safety for being honest, or those are the types of things that make it more, you want it to be practical, something that's doable. And so that's how the mission statement ends up being. So my family now, we need to sit down and and spell that out, because we just came up with like these value words, but then we didn't turn those value words into, how do we, what does it look like to have belief? What does it look like to have grit? What does it look like to have definiteness of purpose? And that's what your mission statement will end up looking like. And you write it down. When you write it down, you state it in a current statement. So I am, or we are, that way, whatever it is that you're envisioning of accomplishing, it's something that becomes who you are.
Yes, totally. Okay. Well, I actually am, I think it makes us all feel better that you haven't totally written out this mission statement.
Well, can I say that? I want to say something about that, because, I was like, oh my goodness, I don't want to sound like I'm a fraud or something, because, I don't have a mission statement. But this is something that I endeavored to do this podcast so that I could learn. and that's something that I am doing, is like, I'm learning along with my audience, and a lot of these things, because it's something that I'm working on, and I consistently and continuously learn more in the process.
Yeah, totally. And that's what we're all doing. We're all works in process. Our families, ourselves, and that's great. And I actually love the two-step idea anyway, because for me, we don't have a family mission statement, and it's a little daunting to me, the whole idea, but the way that you've broken it down, we can make a list. Totally, we can do that. And then we can turn that list into actions. And so that to me makes it really doable when looking at put together a family mission statement is kind of a scary concept, and part of the reason that we don't have one, because I'm like, I don't know. It has to be this work of art and it has to be perfect. And so it's a little scary, but this takes the fear out of it. And I think there's so much good in having that. Now, a question came up. We'll kind of just brainstorm on this. But as you were talking, you said, maybe we want our family's culture is that we're into health and fitness. So I love hiking. I love going on walks. I love being outside. My kids have decided that that's the worst thing ever and they don't want to go. And I love healthy eating. And they're like, oh, Mom, I don't want a vegetable. And they get candy at school and come home with stuff that I would never buy. Anyway, so we're kind of at cross purposes on some of the things. Now, not the most important values, but how do you shape culture when you've got, family members who are strongly, opposite ends of the spectrum? Any thoughts on that?
That's a good question. I think that a lot of times, I've asked my guests this question, and a lot of times their answers have been, well, you got to start them young. And I'm like, okay, but what if they're not young? You've got to be able to enroll them into this. And that's really where I think coming together to have like family meetings and, working together to decide where you can come together to just maybe compromise on some of the things. I think that when kids are a little bit defiant, I think that that's where we as parents, it's good to just be open and to be able to have, open up for suggestions to find solutions together. Because I think that if we are, if you think about a corporate culture where the boss stands over and looks down their noses at everybody and says, we're doing this X, Y, and Z, this is our goal and you're going to do it, then that's a bad environment for employees, right? Nobody likes to feel like they're being forced. But I think that when it's a culture where the kids feel like they can contribute and they can talk about those things, then it's something that they can thrive in. It's an environment where they can thrive in. And because for me, at least for my opinion, is that I would want my kids to feel like they want to be in our family culture rather than looking outside of their family to meet their needs. And so I would want them to want to be able to come together to work out a solution together so that we can all get on the same page and work out and find a solution together.
Yeah. Okay. Such great thoughts. We did have one victory in this area that I will share that came out recently, just a couple weeks ago, actually. And my family I said, guys, we haven't gone hiking in so long. And I want to go and I want to go outside and I want to spend time with you guys. Let's go on a hike. And their answer was grumble, grumble, grumble. And I said, okay, is there anything we could do that would make this fun for you to go on a hike? And they said, if you got us really good snacks, it would be fun to go on a hike. Nice. And so I went to the store and I bought them great snacks that they usually don't have. And then they were excited about it. So I think, that's just that what you were talking about, that principle in action and a way to kind of make it happen. And like you said, I mean, we can't force it. We can't say, our family is athletic. If you have a kid who's just not into that and doesn't enjoy that, maybe their role becomes, being a support and going and cheering on the family members who are athletic, and they still go, but they're not forced to participate. That force just doesn't work,
Yeah, no, totally. Well, I had a thought about that because when I was thinking about these mission statements and saying things like I am or we are, a lot of times, I mean, it sounds a lot like, have you ever gone on and looked up like affirmations, like positive affirmations and things like that you can say. And I kind of think of a mission statement almost like an affirmation, where, you're stating something about what you are and what you want or what you want to become as a statement of I am. And a lot of times I think that if we make a statement that's not true, then it rubs us wrong. And like I was thinking about it with regards of an affirmation where it's like, say I want to be body positive. One affirmation could be, I am healthy, or I love my body. But if those things aren't true, then I won't believe them.
Yeah.
But if I say things like, my body is a temple, my body is strong, or my body carries me through hard things, or things like that, then, or I'm doing things to take care of my body, then those statements are true. And so like a lot of times when we say an affirmation, we want them to be things that are true. And so like when you sit down and you list the values together as a family, then it will be easier to come up with those true statements, because it's like, those are the things that your family truly believes and values. If our family truly values, I mean, maybe you could turn it around and say, well, our family values being healthy. And that could translate to anything that your family, each individual might have a different feeling about what that means. But if it's something that you all value and believe in, then it can adapt to each individual personality of the things that they truly value.
Yeah, that's a good thought. I like that, because instead of specifically saying our family loves vegetables, we all love vegetables, to say we value being healthy, we are a family that's healthy. And then that means what it means to different people. So I love this concept of, a mission statement and a list of values. What are some other specific steps that families can take to really enhance their family culture and to make it like they want it to be, both day to day, like the big picture, and then the little things too?
Yeah, I think that when you have especially a vision in place, one of the things that I learned from that book, the Simon Sinek Start With Why, is that when you have a clear vision of where you want to go, then that almost automatically translates into the how to get there. And so he talks about something called he calls it the celery test. And basically you might get advice from somebody saying, oh, we think that eating Oreo cookies or is the best way to go. Or we think that eating all lean chicken is the best way to go. So you get all this outside advice. But if your family vision is that you eat only nutritious foods, then you're going to go to the store to pick out those things that only fit with what your vision, what your family vision and purpose is. So it will define, that advice to get Oreo cookies, you're going to go, that doesn't really jive with what we believe in. And so then if some other family says, or another person says, well, celery is the way to go. That's the way to go. And you can know that works because that fits with what our family values are, that fits with what our beliefs are. And so starting with that vision is so crucial, because then it helps you to define the different whys. But to go more deeply into, a little bit more about the specifics of things, coming together to have regular family meetings is an important step, so that you can all, check in periodically, saying what's working, what's not working. To be able to have some kind of accountability. Hey, we sat down and we talked about this value. Did we really do that this week? And check in with whether everybody is still on board with those things. So family meetings are really important. And then having regular routines that help you implement whatever it is that you're doing. If your family values having quality time together, make sure that you plan that in to your family culture. If your family values hygiene, make sure you sit down and you talk about hygiene. Whatever it is, whatever the things are that are important to your family. If it's important to your family to live live a religious life, then it's important to consistently sit down and do things that reinforce their religion and your faith. When I was growing up, it would be very randomly that my dad would go, "Hey guys, we're going to read the scriptures now." And we would all groan, go, "Oh, what? Where are you coming up with this, Dad? Oh, you're trying to cram this stuff down our throats." And we would just groan about it. And I think that really, looking back on it, was like, if my dad had sat us down and said, "Hey, every night at this time, we're going to sit together and we're going to just read a few verses from the scriptures, or we're going to come together and we're going to have nightly prayer. How do you guys feel about these things?" Then we would be more on board. And then being consistent with it, we would just know, oh, this is what we do as a family. Okay, that's what we're doing. And that's not to say that it's always going to be easy. My family, we sit down and we'd read a couple verses every night, and I have little kids that still go, "Ew, I don't want to do this," but it helps, because part of being consistent is that's planting the seeds and nourishing those seeds that will help to nourish the values that you believe in. And being consistent with those things helps to nourish those seeds.
Yes, I was going to say, as you were talking, you said regular family meetings, regular routines. I feel like that is such an important piece, is consistency. As we do these things, they don't have to be huge. It's not like, these big things we're going to do, but the things that are done consistently are what is remembered. I don't remember from my childhood every little random, trip we took, but I remember the things that we always did, the things that we were, consistent in doing. And I think that really that is such a huge shaper of family culture, because it sticks in our memory and that's what we remember. So, I know people will want to learn more. Where's the best place to find you?
I like to direct people to Instagram, because I have the link there that you can access all my other links. So I'm at Family Culture Podcast on Instagram.
Okay, I will put a link there. Family Culture Podcast. And any final thoughts for us on family culture, things you would say to people who this has really resonated with and they're like, yes, I want to do this. Yeah. What would you say to people as they're, starting this process?
Yeah. When I've talked to people about family culture, it's really come back to this analogy that it's really a vehicle that carries you towards your vision. And, I've come up with so many different analogies with, like, when you get in the car and you're going to go on a trip, you need to have a map. You need to have a destination of where you're going. And then, along the way, you're going to have pit stops, or you're going to need to refuel, or you're going to need to, just do all these things to maintain that vehicle. And that's what family culture is like. Your family is if you get in the car and you're just like, I don't know, flip a coin where we're going to turn next, then you don't know where you're going to end up. And that can be really discouraging, and you might not be able to find your way anywhere. And, I've recently heard this line that was like, it doesn't matter how fast you're going. If you're going in the wrong direction, you're never going to get there. But if you even small steps in the right direction, you're always making progress. And so that's really, I talk about all these different things you can do, having a family mission statement, having family meetings, being consistent. Well, we're never gonna, that's hard. That's a lot of stuff to think about. And it can feel very kind of discouraging sometimes, thinking, oh, I'm so not there, or I'm really inadequate, or things like that. But as long as we're doing something, then we're going in the right direction. And as long as we, keep that vision of where we're going, keep it, reinforcing it, keeping it clear in our minds, then it will help us to define the how to get there. And the values that we have will create the positive boundaries that we need, and create, the roadmap for where we're going.
Oh, that's so good. I think that is so powerful. I love that analogy of the family culture just carrying you toward your vision. And as moms, if we can have that vision, first of all, I think that's the first place to start. And then just knowing what we want for our family. And then, like you said, taking those little small steps to get there. So this is powerful stuff, because when we have a strong culture in our family, we're really, getting where we want to go, and we're being the kind of moms we want to be. So I hope that, people can take this wherever they are and just use what they need today. So not as a place to beat yourself up because you don't have this, but to say, okay, what am I going to take from this, and what little step am I going to take? And I think there's so much here. So thank you, Jodi, for sharing this today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate being able to share.
Of course. And thank you, everyone, for listening to Moms Who Know. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode, and it really got the wheels turning for you about what you want your family culture to be. So today's discussion question, either for yourself to think about, or better yet, to come and post on Instagram and Facebook at Moms Who Know Podcast, is this: what is your family culture? It's a really great thing to put into words, to think about, what do I want my family culture to be? What is it currently? I hope you'll share, because after this episode with Jodi, it's something that's on my mind, and I would love to learn from all of you guys. So I hope to hear from you on social media. Let me know, what is your family culture? Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next week on the Moms Who Know podcast.